your main man, coming back again today. Barbarian Horde sound off. And today we're going to be talking about theme. And when you're running something like Dungeons and Dragons, you want to really look at monsters thematically from the very beginning of your campaign, from before you've set your campaign up. I mean, when you're putting it in the mental stroganoff, if you will, and you're letting it baste and bake and be made and prepared for the player's mental consumption in that collective ethereal fantasy space that you share called the game. Now, in a game, you really want to have the players be able to breathe it and feel it in. And if you just go through a monster manual and you yank out the A to the Z, Baba Aranshik style from Aran to Ran, you're going to have a seeming mismatch of situations occurring, and it doesn't really have a solid thematic foundation which you can build on to help tell the story. When I put a game together, I like to sit down and really think what is going to be on the table. That doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit extra seasoning to spice up the dish, but you want to really stop and think about what you're doing. Are we going to have a campaign where we're dealing with aberrations, where we're dealing with, you know, these strange creatures, and really start building that sort of thing up with Neogi and Umberhulk and Elithid and beholders and this sort of thing? Are we going to have a campaign that spans the heavens and the hells with, right from the rip, this demonic or infernal or celestial influence sprinkled in, or something more of an elemental bent when you're dealing with, you know, fire, water, wind and earth, or, you know, para elementals, what have you? Try to give a sort of strong, consistent feel. Now, when I put together the current Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game / 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons game, where I just meld it through in the pot, add some within the Ring of Fire, available on DriveThruRPGs right now.com, baby. Woo, my God! You can pick that up for your holiday shopping experience on DriveThruRPG.com and really get that deep immersive experience. And I bring that dark fantasy, deep immersive experience in any sort of game that I'm running, and I wanted to give my son a real feel, along with my nephew, along with some of my good friends, a real feel of classic Dungeons & Dragons, completely revamped, remastered, and brought into a whole new situation. Something that really captivated my attention real early on. Those of you who watch my channel for a long time might recall, like, you know, you just hang on every absolute word I say, that maybe 10 years ago when I posted the first Dungeons & Dragons book, the first role-playing game book I ever purchased was from my buddy Paul Rodriguez. I went by his house after school, and I give him $10 for a used copy, very good condition, of Monster Manual 2 Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Now, the AD&D Dungeons & Dragons 2 book completely confused the shit out of me. I'm in 7th grade, I'm 12 years old. I kind of think I was expecting something akin to a module without really having an understanding of what I would even be getting into. I had played a very generic role-playing game that I guess was a badly cribbed, poorly misunderstood translation from Dungeons & Dragons from a friend of mine, Damon Mojica, in 5th grade, and I guess 6th grade, I think. Yeah, because I went to a different school. So I think 5th grade and 6th grade he and I played. Became buddies, you know, sleepovers, that kind of thing. Played a lot of hours of this complete garbage system that he'd come up with. And even then, at 10, I'm like tinkering, like, what if we did this instead? What if we tried this? That I don't like that rule. Let's try this. And he was like, you know, because even at 10, those rules were adding to the deal. They were better rules. Not good rules now, mind you, but better. So when you are putting together this experience, you know, you're sitting around, you're looking at your books. So in my game, I use the 2nd edition for flavoring, and I use more the baseline of the 3.5 rules for the game. I don't have my 2.5 player's handbook sitting in front of me, but like I said, the first book I ever got was a Monster Manual, AD&D, 1st edition, Monster Manual 2, not even 1, but 2. And I didn't really understand what I had there, because you need like the Dungeon Master's Guide to even like have the FAQs. And I'm reading the beginning of it like, what in the fuck is this? I mean, it may as well have been in Swahili. I could not understand it. I did not know what was going on. I'm like, ugh, this is... How do I play this? What in the hell? I didn't know there was a player's handbook. I didn't know there was a Dungeon Master's Guide. I just showed up and, you know, I bought that book from him because I had no idea where you could even get D&D books. And we'd just been talking, and I guess he was a little older than me. He was in 7th grade, but he was like 14 or something like that. Really good guy. who I'm sure will never watch the video, but if you do, you're still good in my book, Paul. This was the second book I ever got. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, second edition Player's Handbook. And I think I got this the same year that I got the other one, but I can't attest to that. It's possible I was in 8th grade when I got this book. This scene right here, the first piece of art outside of the cover. Let me double check that. Someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. Yeah, first piece of art in this book outside of the cover was this wonderful scene. Like, just look at that. Full color, beautiful artwork. And you see this scene of these adventures, and they have this tiny little green dragon, this little tiny bit of treasure. And you look at that, and you look at them, and you go, wow, there's a warrior and a cleric and a wizard and possibly a thief or a ranger. I don't know what the elf chick is supposed to be, or half elf maybe. And then this other chick over here, like, what is she? Is she a fighter? Maybe she is. You have this group of 5 people, and it's just really fantastic. This has always been so evocative to me, and I said, fuck it, we're going to do this. This is going to be part of that experience. I'm going to take classic bits of inspiration and try to revamp them 2021 style and really give that to the players in an experience that's going to be very different from probably whatever that sort of painting out. So what I decided right away for the theme of the game, dragons. When we're playing dungeons and we're playing dragons, in a lot of games you don't see any type of dragons at all. There's no dragons at all in the games, and it's called Dungeons and Dragons. Not that you should have to run dragons in every game or any game ever. Dragons are extremely difficult creatures to play. If you just play them role-playing style, right, they're very difficult because they can fly, they can change movement, they can use spells, they have a staggering amount of different attacks, and you need to really play them up. If you play a bitch-ass chump dragon, your players are going to joke you, they're going to clown you, they're going to hey, get out of here with your dragon-ass bullshit. The dragon needs to be very hard and nearly kill all of them. You need to incap at least one of your players. You need to have your players suffering, paying the price. And definitely expect them to go skin the dragon as soon as they are done slaying it. This is 100% in my expectation. So we have a very young dragon, green dragon, with the breath. And I get into really explaining what that's like. Because the whole area is polluted, right? I've gone down to this cavern complex. The whole area is polluted after it's breathed just one time with this poisonous gas. The gas didn't just go away. If you go and spray an enormous amount of poison, well, it's going to really pollute the area with some horrible consequences that you don't want to sit and linger and skin a dragon in for hours. It takes hours to skin a dragon. The ranger sat down there and I described how it's dripping out of the eyes, out of the nose, how the mouth is dry, how the throat feels like it's closed up on him. But that's not really what we're talking about right now, though it really gave them a good feel for that sort of thing. And in the theme, pursuing using dragons, I said, well, okay, so right off the bat, this was essentially the second encounter, physical fight encounter they had. They dealt with a few bandits. On their way to it, there was this ruin, Temple of Lathander, ancient. It hadn't been used in centuries. It's broken. There's entire pieces missing, and they basically fell through the floor and ended up finding out where this small dragon's lair is. And the dragon, of course, is being served by kobolds. Because when we establish a theme, what goes with that theme? With dragons, you got kobolds, you got lizard men. So we've used kobolds, we've used lizard men. So we start sort of going off from there. Then there's other sub-themes of things that I wanted to do and wanted to use. Now, for me, there's a lot of other ways to use dragons. Dragons don't necessarily have to simply be stat blocks that run at you. And dragons don't necessarily have to look anything at all like dragons. So you can have an individual that looks not like a dragon, like you or me or somebody very spectacular, just looking that way and talking to you and interacting with you and engaging you in different ways, and then we can open it up for a vast role-playing opportunity with someone that may be extremely old, extremely wise, extremely shrewd, and certainly someone that's put themselves into a position amongst humans, seeing how humans are, though they look down on humans and elves and half-elves and these disgraceful little short-lived creatures that flicker out so fast and have such a small repertoire of wisdom or perspective at their disposal. That can be very engaging. I've never much liked the idea of smog. It just sits there on a bunch of gold coins for no real reason, and it just chills, and that's what it does. And maybe it flies around and kills a couple people. Get them engaged, get them moving, get them working in your world. And how do you get something as massive and colossal and powerful as a dragon moving in your world? Well, there's quite a few different ways you can do that, and by making it look nothing at all like a dragon is certainly a way to do that. I remember back being a teenager and reading a dragon entry in AD&D 2nd edition for Steel Dragons, I went, oh, that's how I'm going to do dragons all the time, forever. That's just how I'm going to do dragons. I dig that. I like the ability to have dragons moving amongst you, moving about you. These are creatures of extreme magic. So from a thematic standpoint, when you take and you work something like that, and you can work it here at the beginning and then all the way to the end, you can work it. And you can come up with some huge, incredible, fantastic things. You can show something like a dragon, which can be very political. You can show just the cusp of that political dealing to your character. Just make it like an iceberg and just show them just the tip. Just let them get just involved just a little bit. You don't have to thrust the players fully in there. You don't need to show the players everything. In fact, I strongly recommend you don't, because when you show them just a shadow on the wall of what's happening, then their mind is extrapolating. Quite a bit is going on, particularly if your players trust you to have done the work. And when you do, and you should, your players are going to be able to imagine so much more simply by something like that happening. So that was a real strong idea in the game for me from the beginning, to give it something from a thematic standpoint that is awesome and awe-inspiring. There's just strike fear inside a man's heart that's very, very obvious, though so often ignored. I've played so many games where dragons never come up, and in any way that they ever did, it could in so many ways be lackluster, because I suppose they can be quite difficult to capture correctly. And that is sort of unfortunate. When you are portraying a dragon, you really want to bring them across as something vastly beyond an apex predator. Explain to the characters, this is a kid with a magnifying glass and you're an ant. It's not a cat and a mouse. This just kills you. It breaks you. It destroys you. Or it puts you in a little jar if you amuse it for a little time. It's beyond you. It is wiser and more intelligent than you. It's more charismatic than you. And it's certainly a hell of a lot more violent and capable of that than you are. However, when you have it bent towards mystical aims, to achieving its own goals, and you can wrap the players in various ways to those goals. The players may become allies or enemies with such a dragon working in such capacities where they are able to interact with it on different ways. And you can start slowly, and always slowly sprinkle in clues. Have something like that act just a little bit different whenever you have something that isn't what it seems. You got to give just a tiny tip here and a tiny tip there to allow the players to slowly start putting things together. Because if you look at classical mythology, whenever you have something that isn't what it appears, there's always a telltale sign of that in the works. And that's something as a game master you want to bring in. Just a little, not immediately, just kind of let them start seeing things aren't just as they believe they are, that things are more than they may appear to be. So I think that's really important. And your themes could be something like Goblin Hordes, right? And I think that's a bit tired, because you've seen that so many times, where the players start here and they're fighting like one crippled goblin. It's like, man, I'm crippled. Man, I'm against you because I'm crippled. And then they go on to like two half-dead, wretched, filthy, deprived goblins, and you slowly start building up. There's more and more goblins, and then hobgoblins, and then bugbears, and then bugbears with hobgoblins, and then bugbears riding the D7 ogres, and you keep going with this sort of humanoid avalanche and invasion, and often in those games it's simply just continuous stat blocks assault you. Really, whenever you're putting the monsters together, you need to think about them from two standpoints. The standpoint of making them horrifying to fight, Do not make encounters easy. You can give a few softball encounters. I think that's fantastic. When the players are like, "Oh God, this is gonna be hard as hell," and they like walk through like 20 kobolds when they're like 10th level, and they're like, and that's it. That's all there was. There was 20 kobolds because 20 kobolds were there when they were at first level. 20 kobolds are there now. That's just what happened to be in that lair, in that cavern or whatever. It may be connected to something else much more, but when they're kill, and they're describing, and you're getting the violence and the viciousness, but they ain't really getting hurt. And possibly, they're draining their spells. They're using their items because they're so amped up, hyped up, and they're like, there's got to be more here. And there really doesn't necessarily need to be, although it can lead to something else. But when you give players that sort of yo-yo, first of all, it lets them really flex. In my game, that's important because I beat the hell out of my players. I am known for putting together very hard encounters. Many times players have said, "Holy fuck, I fought that in somebody else's game, and oh my God, is that how they're supposed to be played? That thing is terrifying. That thing is violent. I don't ever want to fight that thing again." Because you got to bring it to life. You got to let them sit there and see death staring at them in the face. And that can really just be awe-inspiring with the brutality and the violence to put it in place. So, really think about that. Think about your apex creatures you want to use. You could use something like aberrations, like I said before. You could use a doppelganger. A doppelganger could be a fan-fucking-tastic. Those some character levels on just one doppelganger, or maybe you have like 15 of them and they're there from the very beginning. Hell, they might be working against each other and they're just chess piecing the characters. You might be talking to Bob, the doppelganger, and maybe Maurice, the doppelganger, actually just doppelgangers that look like Bob's form, and you get in this spot where there's just doppelganger war and the player's in the middle of it. And doppelgangers are just trying to use them like pieces. So some of them are helping them, some of them are hindering them, trying to move them and manipulate them to their advantage because the players are what? Powerful weapons of war. And if you can use a weapon of war in your arsenal, that's a good move for you. So you can move it, you can really push that over until the very, very end where you describe these horrible gray type skinned aliens with the eyes and the little nostril holes like they're out of Area 51. And it's like, and you can really have this thing where they find out that everyone, they've been the enemies, the allies, and so forth, in fact, it could all just be the same character, just one character there. It's just been everybody. Give a doppelganger teleportation and woohoo, can you have some fun? I may have done that one before. So, from a thematic standpoint, so many of these monsters can work so well when you apply them in that fashion. So, one of the things you really want to do after you've decided where you're going to run the game, what sort of elements you're going to do, try to really establish a theme tied back to your monsters with a dragon theme. It's epic, it's glorious, it's grimy, it's political, it's back dealing, it's deadly, and not just deadly from a standpoint of getting electricity breathed in your face, but deadly from the standpoint of a dragon can hire assassins. A dragon can employ other individuals, and you can get caught in the crosshairs for working with this dragon over here, right? Because they're making moves, they're playing games. They have enemies that are and aren't other types of dragons. So you can get caught up in the mosh and just learn, just what time it is. This has been your main man coming back. Whoa, my God! One more time.